Okay, so we're in the phase of young adulthood, and it's when you're a young adult that you get your very first job. So maybe you were babysitting, maybe you worked at a shop. In my case, in high school, I worked at a shoe store called Regal Shoes for a little while, which was really good motivation to continue on to university. And then after that, after uni, my first job was as a counselor for a drug rehab program, like a caseworker for a state rehab program, which was interesting, which was enough to make me not go into psychology for graduate school. So anyway, these first jobs are incredibly important, and they sort of affect us for the rest of our lives. But it's often a time when you get first access to money, right? You have your first job, you get your first paycheck, and for some of us, it's the first time that we've ever had money that we've actually earned ourselves. But will young adults in the future have a need for a traditional bank account? Will they even know what a paper check is? Probably not. So taking a look at transactions in the future, and whether or not blockchain is truly hype or revolutionary, I would like to welcome to the stage Larry Sanger, who is the co-founder of Wikipedia and Chief Information Officer of Everipedia, which is the most accessible online encyclopedia. And if that's not enough, Ian Kahn of Futuracy. And if that's not enough, from Blockchain for Good, Chelsea Rustrom. Big round of applause, please.
Hello, everyone. So why don't you guys start by just briefly introducing yourselves and saying maybe like 30 seconds of how your work pertains to blockchain.
So my name is Larry Sanger. My claim to fame is that I'm a co-founder of Wikipedia. I actually am academically trying to have a PhD in philosophy. I started a lot of other projects after that, and now I'm working as Chief Information Officer of Everipedia, which began life as the encyclopedia of everything, and now it is the blockchain encyclopedia. So it's pretty exciting to me that knowledge could be decentralized, and what it means actually is why I joined and started getting into blockchain.
Hi, my name is Ian Kahn. I'm the founder and chief futurist at Futuracy. We are a future consulting organization. I'm also the director and creator of a documentary film called Blockchain City, in which Larry was a big part of the film. And my introduction to blockchain was the frustration out of the hype that blockchain had a couple of years ago. And I decided to change that by making a film about the reality and the truth of blockchain.
All right, beautiful. So why should the average person care about blockchain today, and then also thinking through maybe 10 years from now, why they should care? How would it impact their everyday lives?
I'm not sure that the average person has that much reason to care about blockchain right now. I think that's going to change. I mean, right now, it's just something that it's neat to talk about, and maybe you do a little bit of speculation in Bitcoin or whatever, if you've got the skills to buy it. But it's all going to change, I think, within the next few years. One of the main reasons to think so is that a lot of institutional players, big institutional players like central banks, like other big banks, the state of Ohio, other political entities are all getting really big into cryptocurrency. And even though we've been going through a big bear market the last year, that's changing. And the fundamentals are the same, and the people who are really hard at work on blockchain have not lost faith as far as I can tell. I think that within like 2 or 3 years, you will see projects like Everpedia and,
Good plug, yeah.
and lots of others actually sort of come into full flower as consumer dApps. That's the word, which means decentralized app. And that will basically teach the world about what blockchain is really all about and why we should be excited about it. It's not just a funny little game of creating currency out of nothing.
Yeah, it's almost user interfaceless right now, so you can't really feel or touch it the way that we might be able to touch it in a few years. How about you, Ian?
I think there's another way to answer that is if people care about their privacy, if they care about democracy, if they care about the truth, then people definitely should be interested in blockchain. And this is a separate conversation from Bitcoin. Bitcoin is completely different, and I'm on a mission of differentiating these two. Blockchain brings a lot of value to the world that we were unable to see because of traditional computing, traditional databases, traditional computers, the internet. And blockchain changes that by creating a new form of trust, by creating a new form of storing and exchanging information that wasn't there before. And that's what's changing a lot of different things. Again, from traceability to trust to elections to payments. There's at least 1,000 different applications of blockchain that are being looked at right now, not just only in finance, but in government, in the music industry, in farming, and it's tons and tons of different use cases.
Could you give a couple examples of use cases of what they look like now and maybe what they would look like a decade from now?
Absolutely. So I can think of one example is a $2 billion industry based on fraud, and it's fraudulent beef, fraudulent Australian beef that's sold in the market. And this is worth $2 billion with a B. And there's no way to track it, there's no way to trace it, there's no way to figure out, is this beef really Australian beef? And there's a company called Beef Ledger that wants to change this. And what they do is they enable tracking of that beef right from the farm to the fork through blockchain technology by RFID tags, tagging packaging, and tracing that entire journey of that beef packaging until it reaches the consumer. And so if we're able to change that and eliminate a fraud worth $2 billion in a market, I think that's significant. And consumers will ultimately get what they paid for in this example. The fraudulent industry, the fraudulent insurance industry in the United States is about worth $40 billion. And this is people putting in fraudulent claims for things that never happened, whether it's in property damage, car damage, auto theft, auto insurance, healthcare insurance. There's a ton of fraud that takes place. And because of blockchain, we can now change that and eliminate this entire fraud by keeping patient history.
So maybe we don't even need insurance anymore in some ways in the future, because we could have sensor-based technology actually running our cars and other things like that. Interesting.
Correct.
Okay. So we talked about this a little bit before. What was your aha moment when it came to blockchain? I feel like most people that have an experience with understanding blockchain at some point start to see the world in a totally different way through that lens. So could you describe that moment for you? And you have to.
Sure. So I first learned that Bitcoin existed and first started hearing about blockchain probably in 2012 and then 2014 or so. And then actually, it was around that time that I was thinking, as I have over the years, a lot about how to improve on the Wikipedia model, actually. And I came up with this idea. I called it Greater Wiki. Imagine a project that would enable humanity to rate all of the encyclopedia articles in the world. You put them all in one giant database, right? And allow people to put a numerical rating on each article. And so you could actually have a ranking in order of quality of all the articles on a given topic. And so I won't go into more details. I got really excited about that, so much so that I started programming so I could implement it myself, actually. I wanted to make sure it was done right. But at the same time, I was talking to the guys at Everpedia, and they hadn't decided to move to the blockchain. They started in 2015. They didn't move to the blockchain until last year, actually. So Sam Kazmian, the president of Everpedia, called me up and said, Larry, have you heard of the blockchain? I said, oh, a little bit. And he said, well, we're thinking of moving Everpedia to the blockchain. You have an idea of what that means? And he explained it. The idea is actually, it's actually quite simple. It simply incentivizes the work on encyclopedia articles by paying people in tokens. But it isn't a company that pays them. It's interaction with a distributed, decentralized network, right, according to rules that are determined by a protocol, right? So it's just like the internet itself, just like email, just like HTTP. It is a decentralized protocol. But what we're talking about is an encyclopedia protocol, right? As opposed to like an email protocol or a chat protocol or whatever it might be. It's an encyclopedia protocol. And I said, that's exactly what I need in order to implement that greater wiki idea. So basically, I think of blockchain as being the fulfillment of the promise of open source software and all the philosophy behind that.
So sharing value with the value contributors themselves.
Yeah. So when I finally realized that, I got really excited about it, and I have been ever since.
Nice. How about you, Ian?
I think for me, the bigger interest in blockchain arose a few years ago when everybody, the entire world, was going crazy with cryptocurrencies, and people were putting their hard-earned 401ks, their retirement money into buying bitcoins because the price of every bitcoin was just trading higher and higher and higher. And when something like that happens, you want to stay away from it and not jump into that fire. And the realization came to me that there's something is not right, because people are blindly putting everything they have into something that is not backed by any currency. And I'm specifically talking about cryptocurrencies. They're putting their money into things like a Kanye coin, a dog coin, and there's over 1,200 different cryptocurrencies in the market out there. And that led to the fact that, some kind of truth needs to emerge between blockchain, which is amazing, it's an amazing technology, and things such as Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency. So that differentiator was the push for me to just jump a little bit deeper and to undertake the project.
Nice. So we talked a little bit about this before. You mentioned it in your last statement, but what do you think about sharing ownership with users, like with Everpedia? I know that people are getting token, but that's not necessarily associated with equity in the company. Can you describe the difference between the ecosystem approach and equity and how maybe that works with investors?
I'm sorry, the difference between what and what?
So value sharing in terms of equity versus ecosystem.
All right. So I think as motivators to contribute to an encyclopedia, basically? Is that what you mean?
Or anything. It could be a social network. It could be Everpedia. It could be another version of Airbnb.
Any sort of crowdsourced project that might be built on blockchain. This is a question for any such project. So it doesn't require monetization, tokenization to motivate people to contribute to Wikipedia, clearly, right? But
Not now.
right, when I was starting Nupedia, which was the project that we were working on for a year before Wikipedia, the parent project of Wikipedia, I noticed that a lot of academics just didn't want to get involved because they expected to be paid, even though it is free and open content. They didn't want to be volunteers. They expected to be paid. And it seems to me that even just a little bit might spell the difference for them. I don't think people are going to be turned off by getting a little bit of money. But
I just wonder if where all of this is leading is actually that it'll create a consciousness in humans where they're like, hey, I'm creating value. Why am I not getting paid?
Well, and I don't think that there's a lot of people who are going to go out and decide to work on Everpedia because they'll make a career out of it. I mean, maybe some people later when it gets big, perhaps. But that isn't really why we are in it. And we're not expecting to motivate people to. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Okay.
If that happens, that would be awesome, right? But that really isn't what it's about. When you write an article for the Everpedia network, you're not just submitting it to the website. You're putting it into a digital commons that anyone can use. And,
so it's more gift-based.
You don't just get paid for that. The tokens actually represent a governance stake. You can actually vote with your tokens, and you're expected to, essentially. So it's more, the tokens don't just represent a tradable value. They also represent the value that you have created basically for yourself in interaction with the protocol.
Okay.
So
Ian, what's the most developed blockchain city implementation that you've seen?
Well, there's quite a few that are under process, I would say, because it's not an overnight thing, and blockchain is relatively new. There aren't many providers. The city of Dubai is a great example where they're implementing blockchain citywide, which means it'll power every transaction in government. It'll be based on blockchain. They have an aggressive target of enabling 100% blockchain-based transactions by 2020, which is another couple of years. And that's an aggressive target, given that we don't know a lot about blockchain. And what that'll do is it'll, first of all, create efficiency. It'll reduce the amount of paper that is handled on an everyday basis, and literally saving the city billions of dollars in just efficiency savings. It'll create efficiency in things such as licensing. Licensing your pets, your cars, your driver's license. It'll also change how the land registry system works and how long it takes for your property to register on the land registry system, going from days to going to hours. And that's a significant amount of time savings that'll happen across the board, across different government entities, different government services. So that's a great use case. Estonia's been using distributed ledger for years. It's not blockchain, but it's distributed ledger. The terms are used loosely together with each other, but there's other cities. Singapore is looking at it, and other countries are looking at it right now.
What about incentivizing behavior, like incentivizing people to recycle or do good things for their community or hold dinners or things of that nature? Have you seen any cities implementing projects like that where it's literally trying to change the cultural behavior of people in various communities?
Nothing yet, but it could be a great use case where cities start to use some kind of a token to give back to people in some form of an incentive. And the challenge behind that is that not many cities have gone ahead and created their own tokens and said, hey, this is the token for Vienna, this is the token for Dubai. But I don't see that as an impossible thing to happen within the next year or 2 years, where cities will start getting into stage 2 of changing behavior, of incentivizing people. It's right around the corner.
Okay. And along the same lines, for the two of you, how would you like to see society progress in the future, and how do you think blockchain can play a part in that?
So you asked this question earlier, and I had a little time to think about it, because it's such a huge question. Obviously, it's philosophical.
Especially for philosophy major, yeah.
And I mean, there's a lot of different things that I could say, but one way that society has been moving in that bothers me quite a bit is the tendency toward centralization. Increasingly large and powerful corporations and governments and other organizations that are taking control of, among other things, our data, right? And taking responsibility perhaps for more of our personal decisions than they should be. I think that blockchain in general makes it possible for us to, for example, pay our friends or people who work for us directly using crypto, and that's a pretty powerful thing. That
Directs peer-to-peer payments.
It's not just a neat new financial product. It represents kind of freedom that takes control out of the hands of big centralized organizations and puts it back in the hands of ordinary people. I think that's a good thing.
In a different way, right? Whereas previously it was in a marketplace environment where you knew everyone. Now you can do business with a stranger.
I didn't catch it, sorry.
Just saying that as opposed to previously when markets were free and open, they were mostly localized. So in a particular area where I would trade my goat for your rice versus distributed.
I'm sorry, I still didn't hear. I have a hearing loss, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
It's very echoey room too.
Yeah. Sorry, we can move on to the next question. We've got some audience questions here. What's the most creative use of blockchain that you've seen?
Yes. Okay, well, I'll talk about one that I really like. He's already talked about supply chain, which I think is really neat. Another is, imagine if our college transcripts, university transcripts, were actually tracked on a blockchain. It would work like this. You take a college course at one university, and the university publishes something to your blockchain, onto your records, which you control. They don't control. A registrar doesn't control. And then you can go to another university and another, and maybe have some individual tutorials and maybe take some online classes and so forth. And you can imagine how you might eventually have a long list of courses and professors who have declared on the blockchain in a way that's credible. That's the important thing here, right? It's not just another web service. The fact is that it's traceable back to the people who make these claims about what you have learned. Right? This would be a lot more reliable as a record of what you have learned than a college transcript. And what this means is you could actually claim to have the education equivalent to a college degree, having studied a lot of different colleges or with a lot of different individuals.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What about you, Ian?
So I interviewed Imogen Heap, who's a Grammy Award-winning artist, in my film Blockchain City, and I think we can play the trailer if possible. It's just a very short trailer. I think that'll answer a lot of questions that people have. And we're doing a screening later on at the Boot Camp Theater, which is right here somewhere at 6 p.m. And I invite everybody to attend that.
Screening, 6 p.m. Be there.
Do we have the trailer available?
Something isn't right in economic, social, and political systems, especially on the financial side of things.
Why I should wait like for days or months to buy a house? Why it's not only like a matter of pressing a button?
Blockchain is going to help me become more me.
In the next decade or so, a majority of progressive large and small cities will run on blockchain technology.
The world is moving to the space where most of the economic activity is limited by few.
With the promise of blockchain, many people argue that there is no need for trusting anymore because there is certainty.
Radically decentralizes decision-making.
My journey to find out why some key cities around the world want to break the mold and take a step that nobody else has taken before took me on a journey to ask this key question from those who knew best.
Blockchain and Swiss democracy is a kind of brother and sister.
You can't only read about blockchain, you must also start these small experiments.
Estonia kind of had blockchain databases before the term blockchain was coined.
Blockchain City is a quest to find the truth, to uncover the story of the potential of technology to save humanity, and to help understand how to best shape a future that we can all look forward to.
So yes, screening first time in Europe here at Pioneers 2019, and it'll be running at boot camp at, I believe, 6 p.m. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen, any closing thoughts? Maybe 30 seconds, quick wrap up.
I think blockchain will really drive the future together to converging with the Internet of Things and artificial intelligence. It's not just blockchain. So please pay a lot of attention to it. Join me for the screening, and I can answer many more questions after this. Larry?
I'll just say very few words. Decentralized social media. It will happen on the blockchain.
Ooh, foreshadowing. I like it.
And blockchain is good, so.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you, Larry, Ian, and Chelsea.